back to the Arbitrage Run show. I am your host, Donkey Teeth, joined by Kevin from Arbitrage Racing. Kevin, I'm pretty excited for this show. We really haven't been recording a whole lot of shows lately with all the live streams we've been doing, but this guy reached out to us and asked us if we would be interested in having him on. And I'm super excited. I really know nothing about Southern Farm Stable and Vega. So without further ado, Kevin, let's bring the man, the myth, the legend, Vega. Welcome to the Arbitrage Run show.
What's up, Vega?
Hi, Donkey. Hi, Kevin. Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for good morning. So where are you at, Vega?
I'm in Singapore today.
Yes. I feel like every time, the reason that we were excited to have you on, and I don't know if the ZED community knows this, but every time we talk to you, it sounds like you're jet setting somewhere in the world. You're like, today I'm in Taiwan, tomorrow I'm in Singapore. So you're like the most interesting man in the world to us.
Next 8 days, I would need to be in China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. So yeah, that's me. I don't do that very often, but it just happened. Yeah, just happened. I need to travel this time for all kinds of reasons.
Well, there's a reason that you asked us if we would host you on this show, and we'll get to that in a little bit. It's, kind of ZED topics and stuff like that. But we did want to start out with a little bit of background stuff just to get to know you. I mean, I didn't know if when you popped on, if you were going to pop on with like a Texas accent, or I had no idea where you were from. I was honestly a little bit surprised that you seem to have a little bit of an Asian accent. So we just wanted to know a little bit about your background. I shouldn't be surprised because it seems like you're always over there. But can you share a little bit with us about your personal background, where you're from, how old you are, all that kind of stuff?
Sure. Okay. Ethnically, I am born and raised in Hong Kong, so I'm a Hong Kong Chinese. For the past 16 years, my base is in Macau. Now, when I traveled there were people who never heard of Macau. So if I could explain, Macau is this previously a Portuguese colony, returning to China in 1999, and Macau is an hour by ferry from Hong Kong. So that's where I was based for the past 16 years, and that's pretty much my base. I travel between Hong Kong to see my mom. I go to Japan often for work and also for my passion. What do I do? Donkey, this is one thing. Okay, I've mentioned to you I would not mention my real occupation. And if I could explain clearly, the reason is if people could find my identity online, it will make my real occupation, my work, more difficult. So that's why I'm not going to mention my occupation. But you could guess, and you could DM me. I'll tell you what I can tell you. But trust me, I'm not doing something strange. I'm not doing something stupid. I'm not doing something that's hurting people. So I'm not a Chinese assassin. I'm not a Chinese hacker. I'm not a Don't worry about that. And my job is a normal job, but yeah, I'm not a Chinese spy. Don't worry about that.
Russian assassin, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And my passion outside my occupation is horse racing. You guys may know the number one pastime in Hong Kong is horse racing. So I've been in horse racing for more than 25 years as a punter. Yes, but not like some other big professional group. I just love to watch horse racing and punting.
Do you own any real life horses?
I was an owner previously in syndicates in Hong Kong and Singapore, but not now. Both of those horses retired. So at the moment, no. But I have friends who were big in ownership. So I have these friends who they run a bloodstock service as their main job. So they buy horses from Australians and New Zealand and import them into Hong Kong and a few into Singapore. And they asked me, Vega, do you want to join us? And I said, sure, yeah. So that's that. But ownership is not really my dream. Yeah, because financially ownership doesn't make sense, and I'm not a guy wealthy enough to throw money down the drain, basically. So yeah, so
So how did
I'm not in that, but yeah, but I love horse racing.
you get into crypto and then eventually Zed?
Right, I buy my first Bitcoin in 2016, and up to today, I'm still a huge Bitcoin bull. I'm in terms of crypto, I don't actually touch altcoins. So even today, every time I touch my MetaMask wallet, I still worry that I lost my altcoins. My Bitcoins are in my cold wallet. I'm just a huge Bitcoin bull. So, and it's something that's natural for me. I said that I would not mention about my profession, but I am in front of a computer all the time. Yeah. So I don't have robots, but there are people who accuse me, you are always on Z, but because I am always on a computer. So you guys may realize that I have not been racing last week. So before last week, every night I wake up, I go to a loo, I walk past my MacBook, I will look at it and see if my horses still have an extra energy that I need to spend. So that has been my life for many months. Last week was refreshing in that sense. Yeah. So that was crypto. That was that was that was in the media previously. Yeah. I seen newspaper clips about that. It was the period right before, guys. If you remember, they have a promotion with Melbourne Cup. I don't remember the year. Melbourne Cup was in November, so it's October, probably 2 years ago. I guess.
That sounds right.
Yeah,
2021,
yeah.
yeah.
So I was in a start by I start. Hey, this game looks cool, and at that time NFT was hot. You know, NFT is all over the news, and I feel it's something that I need to learn and know. So I want to buy some NFT. So I bought an ape, for example. I still have one ape. I used to have more than one ape, but now I have one. And I bought one Z horse, and then a few, and then many.
Then all of them.
That was not part of the plan. I thought I would have maybe 8, and now I have 40. Yeah, and I don't know why. That was quite a journey.
That sounds awesome.
Around that.
I do remember the Melbourne Cup quite a bit. So good to hear that. I guess that big marketing push at least got one whale, but I'm sure you're not alone. Probably many others who heard about Zed from the Melbourne Cup. What was the inspiration around Southern Farms?
Southern Farm. Right. In Japan, the biggest breeding operation is called Northern Farm. I hope that makes sense.
So it's a play on Northern Farm. Gotcha.
Yeah. Vega was one of the best mare in Japan racing in the early 90s. So today in Japan racing, Vega's grandchildren are running. Still running. The bloodline is still there. So just when I was playing games, even arcade games years ago, I have been using Vega as my nickname. So yeah, it's just natural for me.
Vega, going back to what you mentioned about Bitcoin. So like anytime that you have bought a big horse, are you going and like converting your Bitcoin to Ethereum? You pretty much hold no Ethereum ever?
No, I do not hold Ethereum for investment purpose.
Just for
No.
digital horse purposes?
Just for the horse. So every time I bought a horse, it's a big struggle within me because I need to take some Bitcoin out of my cold wallet, and I really, really don't want to take that cold wallet out. That's the biggest struggle. Yes.
Yeah.
But I did take out. Well, looking back, it's a lot. And yeah. But I'm happy with the ETH that I have. I'm happy with the horses I have. If one day, well, and I presume most of the readers know about the ZED prices in the past 2 years. If today someone offer me Vega, I'll give you 20 E4 confused penguin, that would be a real struggle for me, because financially maybe I should sell, but I doubt if I would sell penguin ever. I just love her so much.
The attachment to the horses becomes real, doesn't it, Kevin?
Oh man, I know that not too well. Where you're kind of your head's like, I should probably sell at this price, but your heart would not let you unless it was a financial bind. So would you say Confused Penguin is your favorite horse?
Right. It's hard to pinpoint one. Okay. When you asked that like 15 seconds ago, Solid Snake pop-up, a Rock pop-up, and One Man Grand pop-up. One Man Grand is okay. One Man is definitely not my best horse, but it's sort of the horse that is the only one of my first 8 horses that are still with me. Yeah, the other ones are still, they were shitty and they were sold before the crash, right? Baroque have a special place in the sense that, well, and I need to thank Bad Boy, because Baroque is sort of the horse that I think puts Southern Farm on the map. That people really think, oh, Southern Farm they have a seriously good horse, and every time Baroque wins something, somebody in social media say, oh, Baroque still has legs, it's still Baroque for me is really a legend. Penguin is, I believe, is my best breeder. Yeah, I absolutely love Penguin. Baroque is so well known in terms of racing, but I couldn't name a really good Baroque foal, even up to today. There are some okay ones, but not a really outstanding one. But Penguin have produced some really good babies. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Barack never, back in 2.0, never. I mean, 1.0 was totally random, but we did a lot of breeding with Barack because we were friends with, formerly Good Boy Racing, Bad Boy Racing, as you said when you bought it, GBR, Jack. We were in the bidding for Barack too. I remember, Kevin, but I can't remember if we had bought a horse recently. I don't think we had the funds to compete with Vega at that time.
I think it was near Supreme Polarity time.
Yeah, I remember when I had Baroque, the next 7 days, there were more than one guy who come to me and say, Vega, if you will sell me Baroque, I'll give you my whole stable. Yeah. And there's more than one guy who did that.
There's probably still a bunch that would do that.
And Snake was my last big purchase. Yeah. And obviously Snake is a very good horse. And if Snake, at this time of our recording, the Legends League final will be tomorrow. If Snake win tomorrow, he actually will have a special place in my heart.
Well, yeah, you've got 2, and I can pop it up on the screen here over us here. Here's the Legends League that Vega is referring to. We're going to be streaming, actually. Nice opportunity for a quick promo here, Vega. Thursday night, midnight UTC. I guess that would technically be Friday UTC. Anyway, it's 7:30 Eastern time, Thursday night, if you want to convert the math. Same time we've been streaming all of these things. But Vegas got Fitzgerald in gate 1, the champion of the sprint funnel, and then also Solid Snake down there in gate 12. So you're bookending this, Vega, and you like Solid Snake's chances?
I think Snake would do better than Fitz, just because I think Snake could do well in anything 1600 and above. Yeah, I got no idea whether he'll win, because I figure it would be difficult to beat, for example, Dashing Double.
I think, Kevin, your pick was what, Fat Physique or Southern or Solid Snake? I think you were between the two.
I went back to Solid Snake. Yeah, I agree with what Vega said, with Dashing Double kind of having the base ability domination at 700, but I don't know if it has like it needs to win 16 or 18 because I don't think it's going to have the juice to win in any of the specialty distances. Whereas I think Solid Snake could easily rip off 3 or 4 wins and just overpower the field like it did in the regular season. So I picked Solid Snake, kind of cooled off last week, but it's got the upside, the distance preference, and all that to bring it home.
I pulled together a quick graphic here too that I just popped up with the winnings. Fitzgerald has the lead in all-time Legends League winnings with $1,115. Solid Snake had a great regular season, but really did not show up in the playoffs last week, Vega.
Yeah.
But maybe just 1 week off, a little bit of rest, saving it for the grand final.
Let's see. When the races are running tomorrow, I'll be in the lounge waiting to board. So maybe I'll watch a few races on my phone. Let's see.
Hopefully, yeah. Pop into the chat. So anyway, I guess we didn't give you a proper intro here, Vega, because I just kind of always assume anybody watching the show is like super plugged into Zed. Just so everybody knows, Southern Farm is, I would say at this point, far and away the best Genesis, like premium Genesis stable. I think you'd probably agree with that, Kevin, right?
Oh yeah, and I mean, just look at the most recent breeding cycle where I know Vega, you generously donated a bunch of UUUs for the Legends League as prizes, and just every single one looks like a banger. So I think, yeah, a testament to all the Genesis you've accumulated and their ability to breed.
How many Genesis Nakamotos do you have now, Vega? And do you have any other bloodlines, or is it just straight Nakamoto?
I remember when you and Donkey, when you're doing this show, you said something like, I thought Vega, the horses that Vega will donate will have a bunch of exclusive and elites. Donkey, I never have an exclusive in my stable ever. Never. Yeah. I just have Genesis and breed legendaries, and that's it. So number of Genesis, I have around 40. I raced like 31 up to recently, and there were around 8 or 9 glued. And that's it. Yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, just wanted to get everybody a little bit of background just in case, because I do that sometimes. I just assume that everybody is living and breathing Zed like Kevin and I are, just total addicts over here. So back to our, sorry, Vega, did you have something there?
No, I'm fine.
Back to our questions here for you that we've laid out. So Grand Crew, this is something that Kevin even said to me a couple months ago. That I think people just assume that either you guys like share a stable or are the same person. I think there's some misunderstanding there. And I was pretty quick to jump in and because I think Grand Crew or Henri, if that's how you say his name, told me at some point that you just kind of handed over a lot of your breedings back when things were booming to him to handle the breeding. Is that pretty much what your relationship is with Grand Crew stable?
Okay. Grand Crew, I know him for more than 20 years. Yeah, he's one of 6 guys that I introduced into Zed. And except for one, I think they are all still playing. But Grand Crew evolved into a huge operation in Zed, which is totally out of my expectation. But I would say this: Grand Crew is a friend that I know if I show him Zed, he will love it. So and you know he got bit by the bug, and that's the story later. There was a time where I think it's slightly more than a year ago, right? So I was doing breeding, and there was a time where I have a huge backlog in terms of my breeding. What I mean is that there will be 8 guys in line waiting for the next Baroque foal, and 6 guys wanting to get the next Confused Penguin. I'll put them in a line, and they will be so upset that a guy will shout at me and say, "Vega, when can I get my foal?" And I said, "You are, let me see, you are 3rd in line for Baroque and 5th in line for Penguin." And then he would say, "Like, can you move me back 2 spots for Baroque because I want to get both of them and hit the stud with it." And it struck me that I don't have the time for that because it's a lot of time.
You're telling me.
there there were days when I'm finally back home, switch on my MacBook, and it's like a full-time job, like managing these clients' wishes. I try to make sure everybody's happy, but it's just so much work for me. And Grand Crew is not the only one who reached out to me. There were other people who reached out to me, but I picked Grand Crew to partner me in terms of breeding. First of all, if I could say it very clearly here, our partnership is in the breeding only. Like Grand Crew and Kevin definitely would know that, could tell that Grand Crew and Southern Farm will be two different guys, because the way they race, the way they play is totally differently. But in terms of breeding, we have an arrangement. I announced that in my Twitter, and both of you will know I seldom talk on Twitter, but I did make an announcement that I'm partnering with Grand Crew because Grand Crew is happy to take almost all of my best mares. And for me, it's just easy that one guy take all my mares. So there will be a guy who said, I'm happy to take Penguin, Baroque, and Fitzgerald, and Spirit of Ecstasy. And then I don't want to deal with several guys. So Grand Crew is the one who said, right, I'll take all of them. And we agree a price. And that's where we start giving people an impression that we are in a partnership. And that lasts until breeding 3.0. Yeah, so that's the story. And that was pretty much this time last year. Yeah. And the other thing is, I know Grand Crew will have a blast managing I know he'll be super happy and having fun with breeding my mares. And looking back, I think he did a really good job. I really admire how he talked to everybody, coming with the deals. I have no idea how he coming with so many deals. He was talking to people that I've never heard of, and making so many babies, essentially.
That's awesome. That we can relate a ton to that, and I think Donkey does as well. And that's a lot of your struggles are why we decided to make the Arbitrage.Run site, where people could basically book it and have like a calendar on it, where it helped with the management process. But yeah, Donkey is kind of my Grand Crew in terms of that. So can definitely relate, where it kind of felt like a job, a fun job, a lucrative job, but a lot of stress that was just introduced with 2.0. But I guess the other side of the coin is it isn't really there as much with 3.0, unfortunately. So a little bit extra time back. Speaking of that, though, you mentioned, I think a little while ago, where you were kind of racing as much as possible, right? Like late at night, you would see if you had a stamina bar and you would go use it on your horses. But I've noticed now you haven't raced in about a week since Rake came out. What is your strategy behind that? Is it a boycott on Rake? What are your thoughts there?
Right. I know I've seen on social media that somebody it's boycotting. If you are asking me, are you joining that boycott? The simple answer is no. The Rake financially for what I do doesn't make sense. For the 31 Genesis that I raced, they were all pretty much at level 670, 80-ish, somewhere 70 or 80. First of all, the max is 700. Right, I'm not at 700, but I'm not, I'm quite close to 700. The idea is, the plan was always that I will raise them to level 700 and stop. Because when racing 2.0 come out, I know I need to keep racing the horses, because the thing I don't want to happen is my horses are 50 or 100 levels behind the best horses. I'll be in a really difficult position. And again, you or Wagme and some of the top spacers could resonate with with me, we are all racing the same races, trying to do exactly that. Because if if Solid Snake now is at level 580, I have a huge problem. But now that I am at 670, 680-ish, I think I'll do okay. I'm happy if the best horses in the game are at level 700. I'm like 20, 15, maybe 25 levels behind that. I'm behind that, but not a lot. And then the Rake come in, and look, there are people who said Southern is raising a partnership with Grand Cru. Well, first of all, that's not true. If you don't believe me, that's your problem. But I want to say, when people accuse me of doing that, I want to say there are probably for like 6 months in Class 1, 6-horse races, there will be so many races. It'll be 3 from me and 3 from Wagme in marathon or sprints in the double of $10, or it'll be 3 from me and 3 from Plodding Trotting in the mid. We have done that for like 6 months. I've never talked to them. We are not collaborating. We're not fixing races whatsoever, and nobody have ever reached out. I'm not trying to defend myself, or what I'm saying is that once you get to the level, and the way the game is segmented today, this is the only outcome possible. Like, if I and Wami is not running Class 1 marathoner, I don't know who else will. Like it's really hard to find 6 horses and to fill one race. That it's because of how the game is segmented today.
So how long are you done racing for then? So you pretty much didn't race last week. You said you're not boycotting, but Rake is kind of part of this calculation, it seems, in your decision not to race, right?
Because right. If I did not fully answer your question, for me, the last 15 or 20 levels will be very expensive, and for me financially, that it doesn't make sense for me to pay for that last 15 or 20 levels. Because look, if you put in 3, now this is not against Wagme, it's just an example. I love Wagme as a friend. I don't know who he is, but you know, he looks a good guy on Discord. But if you raise 3 horses against 3 from Wagme, you're with a 10% rig. Look, you might as well just send the Eve to Zed. Not that I hate Zed, but you're not gonna win enough to come anywhere close to breaking even. And the same when you race against Plodding Trotting in the mids, and the same when you race against Cows and Quite Original and Verve in the sprint. Look, you're not gonna beat them enough times to come to close to break even. And for me, it's just I think it's just too expensive to finish the final levels. So there are 2 things here. Number one, I don't think I need to pay to get to level 700. But if it's cheap enough, I think I could. But let's see. Look, the rate comes in for like a week. So let's see. You know, that do changes things around. We all know that. So maybe they will change. And if they decide rate will goes to 5% or whatever, I may come back. So I'm not. So when the question is whether I'm boycotting, no, I'm not trying to join a group events to push that to do something. It's an individual decision. Everybody could make up their own decision. When it's financially makes sense, I could raise my horses. But again, if I race again, the idea is when my horses reach level 700, I will stop, because these daily races, there's no racing profit in them, at least for me, or at least for the way I race or the competition that I'm racing against. If I win, it's peanuts. You don't win against racing 3 1-minute marathoner, full stop. You just can't do that. Yeah.
So Vega, you keep referencing like when you get to 700, like that is the ultimate goal, I think, in this new game they've designed. Like what is your in game for Zed, or if you could design what that looks like, what would get you back on the track with level 700 horses?
Okay. Southern Farm is from day one. From day one, when I play the game, I am playing because of the breeding. And that's why it is a farm. Most of the stables are like something racing or whatever. Southern Farm is a breeding operation. And I think Galactic is it's the first guy that gets what Southern Farm is trying to do. Right. Can I make a profit out of it? I don't know, but the idea about Southern Farm is I will get Genesis and Genesis only, because I think, or at least at that time, in that matter, I think Genesis is the best value, or is the best asset that preserves value. Southern Farm is trying to accumulate assets that will represent value in the game. And one of the strategies is Genesis. Number two is the strategy is Southern Farm will accumulate Genesis and breed legendaries and sell them. So Southern Farm has never run in Maiden. We've sold every single one of our legendary up to 9 months ago, I think, when they have breeding 3.0. Southern Farm has sold every single one of their babies. But now Southern Farm is stuck with a lot of babies, but up to that point, every single one was sold for whatever price. And up to that point, Southern Farm, if you ask me, was a successful operation. I think by around April or May, Southern Farm was making around 15 ETH per month in total. It'll be a few, maybe 3 from racing, 4 from racing, and then the rest from breeding and selling foals. So that that has always been the strategy. So coming back to Kevin's question, Southern Farm was never big in terms of racing. If I'm big in racing, I would be in the maiden, I will be in the low classes, but that was never part of the strategy. And one thing that Vega, have always, one thing, or one motto I think is not just you need focus. That ZED is a game, is an ecology, and there's so many ways you could play a game. And I personally, I'm not interested in playing every aspect of it. And it's definitely fine if other players play in maiden, the low class. That's fine. I'm not saying that I must be in the top class, but when Southern Farm is created, it's about accumulating assets with value, and therefore we go for ideally Z1 Genesis, and for the early part is Z1 only. Yeah, and then we start branching into Z2, but still Genesis, and only up to, I think we have a Z4. What is Master Fate? I need to check. I don't know. Yeah, and yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yes. That and if that could explain what you see, what Southern Farm is doing. It's quite funny that there was a point where Southern Farm actually sort of run out of, like, I'm trying to. There'll be nights when I would be looking for what other Z1 could I potentially purchase with value, and the seller will be happy to sell. And I'm starting to run out of options, and then I start looking into Z2s and Z3s. Yeah, but we did not make a lot of purchase in that. By this time last year, mostly is people approach Southern Farm because I guess at that time people start to realize that Southern Farm is a buyer. So if they have a good asset, they do want to cash out, they will push Southern Farm. And so Southern could be reactive here. Southern is just reacting to people's offer, basically. Yeah, and that's how we purchase, for example, Master Fate, Autumn Rain, and some of the horses. Yeah, Battalion, for example.
So Vega, as a breeding operation, obviously these breeding 3.0 changes have not been friendly to any of our breeding operations. for a lot of reasons, which we're not going to really delve too deep into them unless you want to get there. More, my question is like, what's your vision for ZED at this stage in the game? What was your vision for ZED when you came in? Has it changed or evolved with some of the changes they're making? How do you feel about all these changes? I think that that's really kind of the meat of what we need to get to with you as one of the top stables in the game, the top Genesis stable in the game. How are you feeling about the current direction, and what does the vision, your vision, kind of look like right now?
Okay. If I could twist your question a little bit, okay.
I'd love it.
If the question is, Vega, in your view, what is the perfect Z game for you? If that is the question, my answer will be, I think Z almost has the perfect game 9 months ago, before they introduced Breeding 3.0 and Racing 2.0. When I say almost perfect, at that point, I always think, and if you ask me even today, the change that they need in that game is aging. So if at that point Zed interviewed me and said, Vega, what do you think needs to be changed? I think aging is necessary. I have been telling friends, even back then, I've been telling them, look, I would be happy if Baroque never race again. If people continue to buy Baroque's full, I would be very happy with that. Because I could see that there were players that have purchased my foals, and in that meta, to be very honest, it's kind of hard for them to find a legendary foal that could beat all these so-called 1.0 Bs. Is it difficult? I think yes. Have I tried to find any such foals? No, because again, I haven't been racing any of the foals myself, but I could see them struggling. So I would see that, for example, Grand Crew would be selling some of my legendary foals to stable X, a guy, and then he would buy for a few months, and then he would tell Grand Crew, guys, I need to stop. Look, I've been spending ETH to buy the foals, and he will go through the discovery. You remember, in those days, there will be 10 discovery races. He'll go through discovery, and he will go to straight to $2.50 paid race. And even before that race start, in there's no flame, done. Right, that's 1.8 ETH down the drain. And I could see the frustration on that guy. And I would wish to see that, look, if we don't need to put these players, these horses, against Ready Z Boom and Baroque and Y2K2K after 10 races. I think that will help the meta. But at that point, if you interviewed me 9 months ago, I think that is the only change that was necessary in that meta. So going back to Donkey's question, my vision is that game 9 months ago, I think they have almost nailed it. And I could see that game going on for solving the problems that Zed had at that point. Because by that time, they have solved things like downclassing. They've done that already. And at that point, I just think they need aging. If you age out Baroque, if you age out Vanilla Bean, do you know how much hate Vanilla Bean gets on social media? It's ridiculous.
We're a past owner of Vanilla Bean. We know that life for sure.
Yeah. And I wish I could tell the guys, look, I'm happy. Well, up to that point, Zed was still literally paying people to play. They were, from the treasury, they were organizing tournaments, and so the money is from the treasury, which is their money. And we understand that this could not sustain, because one day the treasury will dry up, and they probably figure out, look, we need to see how we could have something that's sustainable. Yeah. to your question, what's my vision? That will be my ultimate Z game I think will work best for me. Everybody has their own vision of what is the best game for them. So that's mine. Maybe that doesn't work for a lot of the other people, but that's what I think. Obviously, that would mean that today's game is not close to my vision, I will admit.
Yeah, I think a lot of good points there. And hopefully, I mean, they aren't afraid to change things, especially on the breeding side. So hopefully we're close to maybe middle ground between what used to be 2.0 and what we're currently sitting at, where he kind of capped on what you can spit out, at least at the beginning. But I mean, you made good points around there's elements of the game that they have improved. And like even in today's game, I think the addition of those less than 250 races or less than 500 at least gives kind of a safe space for these newer horses to avoid the 1.0, even like 2.0 beasts that are way over leveled. So I think elements of that boosting up breeding, and we could be back in business.
If I could add, I agree with Kevin that while today's game is not close to my vision, having the less than 250 races, less than 500 races, I think that I will agree that will be the correct direction. I think the focus always should be on the so-called younger horses. That I will agree of that. That there's no point, like if we are all still playing Z 5 years from now, I would really hate it if it's still Ready Z Boom and Y2K2K and Baroque and Confused Penguin. That would really suck.
Yep.
Yeah.
And part of the challenge, like the team created for themselves, was when they created this game 3.5 years ago. I don't think they were necessarily thinking like 5 years down the line and what the game would look like. So they sold assets under the impression that they were going to race forever, breed forever. They've kind of come to middle ground where you can breed forever if you're a Genesis, but you can't race forever now. But now that does inherently hurt value a little bit, but it's a much more sustainable game if you have new champions entering the track every month or every 3 months. So I do think it's a better loop, even though on the track it does hurt some of the premium racers.
Right. And I have started multiple small business in my life. It's so hard to get it right the first time. Right. So I fully understand that.
What's your feeling on the showing of levels, Vega? And I guess throwing that into the same question, XP and XP boosts and that whole aspect of the game that they added on. Sounds like it wasn't part of your vision and isn't part of your dream world. What's your feeling on it right now as we see it all playing out?
For me, there's an old Z and there's a new Z. For me, today's Z is not the old Z. It is two different games. If Z choose to go do XP levels progression, I understand. That's management of the game decide to go that way. I'm not saying that's bad. I wish players who like to play the game and have fun. That's fine. It's not Southern Farm's vision of what they want to do. I have been playing games since I'm over 50 years old. My hair is grayish white. In my students' day, I have been playing games, leveling up my warrior, killing beasts, trying to game the best warriors. I've been doing that for more than 30 years. And so if Z is a game that I acquire a horse and we try to level it up to make it a better resources, it doesn't appeal to me. And again, I want to emphasize, it could appeal to a lot of other players because there are a lot of games that do that. Games are about, a lot of times games are just about giving you something to do. So I don't, for example, I don't really hate grinding. There are people who say Southern Farm is a grinder, which in a way is correct because I'm trying to play. Well, if you enjoy the game, then you play a lot, so you're grinding. What I'm trying to say is a lot of times games are designed to grind. And if that is the way to they think you should go for it and reward grinder. That's the vision. I won't be joining a game that requires me to continue to grind, even though I'm sure there people say, yeah, but you grind for a lot. I've explained why I do what I do. So I did grind. If the question is, do you enjoy that part of grinding? You should know the answer. Yeah, if I enjoy that, I fully expect I would stop at level 700 sometimes this month, but it looks like I've underestimated that S curve a bit. I'm only at 677, so 680. So without that rake, I probably will stop in August or September, even without the rake. So that's that is my plan all along.
Makes sense. So breeding 3.0, I think, is an interesting topic to ask you about here before we wrap up, Vega. As somebody that has invested a substantial amount of capital in being the best breeding stable in the game, do you feel like they have just kind of pulled the rug out from under you? And is there, what direction would you like them to see making tweaks on breeding 3.2? I think you've watched our previous shows and you stay pretty in tune with ZED, right?
Right. I mentioned about the old ZED and new ZED. If the game start doing XP progression, it's apparent that the management wants that to be the backbone of the game design moving forward. You could see them doing the XP boost NFTs, and they probably do something that utilize the NFTs even more. That will be the backbone of the game. When you do that, the breeding either doesn't matter anymore, or it will be a tiny portion of the formula, because you can see it right now how you play Maiden. It's really about how do you get enough levels into your young horse so that you have enough levels over your competitor, and that's how you get ahead. Once you do that, you don't really need a foe that have premium bloods to win, because that is not the key factor. You could still get by an old cross chromatic theory from me. I'll say thank you. But in terms of gameplay, you don't need that to go ahead to stay ahead of your competition. But it's still a nice breed. Please come to me if you want to buy one. But you know, you just don't need that, because the key is the XP. And because of that, breeds doesn't matter too much anymore, unless ZED decides to change the game again.
Well, they're going to change the game, and I mean, they're already talking about moving on to breeding 3.2,
right.
which I think all of us are excited to see, right?
Right. If I could answer your question about, do I feel being rocked? Quick answer, to be honest, is no. Because okay, I have been in NFT world for 2 years. When there are projects that rock their investors, it's about a guy creating 10,000 JPEGs of an animal that nobody else have done, maybe 10,000 different color pandas, and then, okay, this game will skyrocket, and then people put money in, and then one day you wake up, all the ETH are gone, and you're stuck with your JPEG. I would say that is rugging. I don't think ZED is deliberately trying to do that. If you, maybe a year ago, if you asked me, I would say ZED should try their best to preserve value in Genesis. I think that makes sense. That's all I would say. If at the end of the day, whatever they do, Genesis doesn't have value or doesn't have value over the non-Genesis horses. In terms of game design, I think that's a bad idea. Now, I'm no expert in game design. It's not my profession. I don't know how to design a good game. All I'm saying is that I think if it wants to say it's a good game, I think it's important that Genesis have good value. And the way I measure value is horse prices. You know, when Zed said, okay, we look at data, whatever, we look at retention or whatever, I really wish one of the data they look at is horse prices.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. And I'm sure there will be people listening to the show and say, look, Vega just you know, Vega is trying to preserve value in the babies or whatever, and therefore they contact Arbitrage to get the show. You guys could decide if that's what I'm trying to do.
I mean, I certainly don't think so. I mean, we all ultimately, right? We're self-serving and we want the vision that we want, and we've invested towards that, right? And so, I mean, it kind of adds up to that indirectly, right? But I don't think that's your intention. As far as like this idea of rug pulling, I think it's pretty interesting. Like, if you consider us as investors, like people standing on a rug, right? You're talking about these rugs where they just take all the money and run and they're gone the next day. That's, you know, pulling the rug out and you fall on your ass and it's over. Like you're dead. Versus what Zed is doing, they're taking the rug and they're trying to move it to the other side of the room where they think it's better. And I think it's kind of the same result, at least the same kind of feeling for a lot of people. And that's, you know, it's a fuzzy line, right, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, it's the intent is kind of all of it, and then I mean, it's easy to get swept up in the drama and feel like there's malintent, whether it's that or levels of incompetence. I mean, you do end up in some cases in the same result. The difference is when something's happening over 2 years, at least there's like some sort of place you could have exited, and so like there's some like looking in the mirror of like, all right, you kind of see a direction, and whereas like if you just wake up one morning and everything's gone, that's a very different scenario. But yeah, I mean, I think think of what you were saying about the Genesis piece, and like that's the cornerstone of the game. That is really one of the major like tenets that they said when they started the game. So it feels like, and we've bought a Z1 last week, kind of banking on this being at least close to a bottom in Genesis value, because they minted these Genesis at various prices. They put the premium on the Nakamoto's, and right now, like you're saying, there's really no difference in like a Genesis or a very highly leveled legendary. So it feels like it's a time that they could, I don't know what they could do, but there's a number of levers they could pull to restore value to their premium assets. And I think that would go a long way, at least restoring a big portion of the community.
Right. If I could add to what you say, the NFT world crashed. Okay, NFT was hot 2 years ago. So what I'm saying is that if none of these changes happen, if it is still the old Z game, I probably think the value of the Genesis horse would still have crashed. Because, for example, my BAYC, it was the floor of BAYC was at 150 ETH. Today was 32. So what I don't think it's a Z crash. I think it's an overall NFT crash. It's just that 2 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever, people discovered the second important application of blockchain. If you may ask me, the first one is finance, and now we have Bitcoin and the other coins. And then people try to figure out what else could we do with blockchain. And then a few years ago, people start to discover we could do NFT, and let's do a lot of NFTs. And I could see, you know, if we even if you ask me, even BAYC is struggling to find, you know, what else can we do with this JPEG. So I would not be surprised if Z never make the change to progression and leveling and XP, that the top horses, the value, would still have crashed for maybe 80%. Right. Obviously, some of the best horses have sold for really high prices. Probably not to the prices we see today, but I think, yeah, I think horse prices will still be much lower than they were, because it's just that nobody is putting money into NFT today. That's just what I think. Especially this year. Now this is way beyond Zed. I think this year the only sector that could attract investment is AI, and that have taken a lot of money away from NFT, including Zed, if you ask me. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I agree with what you're saying. I think that gets overlooked. Plus, part of those values, right, were that artificial stimulus of $10,000 a day coming in from Zed, which, as you said earlier, was unsustainable. You also talked about selling these foals for 1.8 ETH, and people would come back, and then at some point, right, you just run dry, right? It's like
Right.
either you hit you're 1 in 20, right? Maybe it was a 5% hit rate, and you hit that home run, and you've got some more runway. Or these other 19 people, right? They run out of money and they feel burned, just as burned as the people that kind of bought the top on Genesis. So it is really kind of complicated, right?
Correct. So going back to your question, I don't really feel rough, because I don't think they intentionally want to take your money and run away. They're just trying to design a game. It's just that, at least at the moment, this current management, the way they want to move forward is different from my vision. That I will agree to that.
I think my biggest issue, and I've articulated this in different ways with Zed and this vision, is their inability to sell it to the current user base. And that's such a key piece when you're trying to shift and evolve a product. You have to get out in front of it and basically pound the pavement and connect with everybody in the community and sell them on your vision, right? And especially when we've invested this amount of capital, and a huge part of their vision, right, is growing the user base. Because what you talked about earlier, Vega, and the value of foals and the value of baseability and breeding, that all changes if you've got 100,000 people playing this game, right? Then there is huge value in having these level 530s, because they're super rare and you can only create so many level 530 foals in a cycle. So if you've got massive demand for those and small supply, then that changes the whole equation, right? But they never really came to the community in like a collaborative effort and asked all of us. There was an effort at one point when they were really first developing Racing 2.0. There was never any discussion on changing breeding, but they did like some groups with what do you call it, Kevin? Getting feedback groups, I guess, right?
Yeah, little focus groups, yeah.
Focus groups, yeah. So they like tried, and then it just like fell apart. And so I think that to me, Kevin, is like where this all could have gone differently. And if they had chosen a different path and communicated better and made it more of a collaborative effort with the community, and the community bought in, then I think that sentiment would be better, marketing would have been more effective, and horse values would have arguably probably held up better than any other NFT asset. But they went this totally backwards way, right, Kevin?
Yeah, and we've talked about it on the show. Like communication, I think still is the biggest opportunity. I think in some ways, like the timing of the game and the timing of the bull run may have spoiled the administration to where like they had this revolutionary idea for the game. Played, I mean, it's still choppy even when it was booming, but the bull run of NFTs and just kind of the new vision for the game was so good that they didn't really have to do anything to just go exponential in terms of growth. And then when they hit a bull or a bear market, I think that he may have, I don't know, discounted how difficult it was actually going to be because of all the early success. So now it's kind of a cold hard dose of reality that unfortunately we're living through. But that being said, I mean, I think we're all still in it. We're all still, we think there's a way out where it could possibly get back to maybe not all the way of what we had once hoped, but very close. I mean, it sounds like Vega, you're still optimistic if there's some changes going forward.
If you ask me, do I think there will be changes? Yes. I have no idea what those changes are. You would see that I would prefer to look at it as an old Z and a new Z, because that change it's a huge change. It's almost look like it's two different games. And if I could add that, you could see that, for example, Galactic or Grand Crew, you could see in social media they are angry and upset. I guess not only because of how many ETH they were making before that, whatever, but they've lost their game. They've lost the game that they really enjoy playing. You know how Galactic played the game, the breeding. Galactic's probably one of my most admired player in the game when I joined. The way he come up with the breeds and how they consistently do well in track is amazing. I have no idea how he do that. And Grand Crew is my buddy. I know him, but you could tell when he's making these deals and 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 coming off with the new babies, that arranging the news cycle. He's having so much fun. He's making ETH, but it's the fun part. And once that changed, once the new Z come in, he totally lost that game. And I think that's where the anger or the frustration from them come. You could see the sentiment totally change on social media. I don't see a lot of the OGs will stay for the new game. That's how I see it, because the game has changed so much. Most of OGs they are here because of the old Z, and this is the game that they enjoy playing. The management wants to have a change because they want to attract new users. That's fine. They think this is the correct way to move forward. That's fine. I don't see a lot of the OGs playing the new game except for maybe Arbitrage. I think Arbitrage will stay with Sid until the very end.
We are on this ship, even if it's the Titanic. We are playing the violin. But yeah, we I think are more optimistic that there will be like material changes. We've seen U-turns in all directions with management, with no real heads up. So I think we're bound to get one of these in a good good direction at some point. And I mean, if you kind of just take a step back, there's a lot of good going on right now. There's some changes where whether they hit them or not, I think there are some outs that will get a lot of the product market fit back to what old Z used to be without completely getting away from like the XP market. Like one example there would be if you had like an offspring and instead of being able to grind the offspring all the way up to 700, what if you just gave the offspring ability to level up 50 levels and all of a sudden you have like RSB full level 0 at birth and then RSB full level 50 by the time you're done grinding it. You don't know what the level is. It could have started at 550. It could have started at 600, but you know it got better and like you're layering on base ability with every level. So then suddenly the starting level matters more. There's less transparency, but premium breeds matter more because if you go back to like breeding 2.0 or 3.2, whatever they're going to do, if your Genesis level creates a higher starting level for the offspring, suddenly premium breeds come back. So then you have a market for like XP, you have a market for premium breeding. I don't know. That's just an example. I have no idea if they're going to go that direction, but they're not that far away from a potential great game again.
Correct. I don't think they are far away from a great game. For Southern Farm, it's quite simple. Well, if the rate changes, Southern Farm may race again. But look, if there are players who are sick of seeing Southern Farm races on the track, they should be happy that look. But even if Southern Farm continue to race by level 700, most of the horses will be benched. And then Southern Farm will be only doing two things. Number one, breeding until a point if a confused penguin foal is listed at 0.1 and nobody is inquiring, then maybe Southern Farm will totally stop because there's just no demand. And the other thing is Legends League, and credit to you guys, just Southern Farm has something to do. Yeah. So that's Southern Farm. If the meta change and breeding comes back and Southern Farm's assets worth something, the breeding worth something, then Southern Farm will be back, but mostly in the breeding sense.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely ways for them to bring the OG players back in and draw them back in, mostly through breeding, through, like Kevin said, more immediate gratification, and potentially bringing some unleveled type occasional tournaments. So, credit to you on supporting Zed Legends League Vega, donating those 12 awesome horses, and even when we started it up, we reached out to you because obviously you've got a lot of Zed Legends and you were supportive from the get-go. You said like however many horses or however few horses, they're right here. I'll sign them up. So it couldn't have happened without you, to be honest. So we appreciate the support there, and you're great for the community. So thanks for not being one of those angry people out there. I mean, all of us could be angry, but at the end of the day, Zed has always been a game of adaptation and going with the punches. And the game today is not going to be the game in 2 months from now. So we look forward to seeing it evolve. And any final thoughts over there, Kevin?
No, I'm curious if Vega, you have any final thoughts? Really appreciate you coming on, taking the time, doing a voice reveal. I think for many people.
Um, if I could talk about the rake a bit.
Sure. Kevin, do you got to pop off?
I do, unfortunately, but I will
Okay.
tune in this.
I'll make it quick.
No,
Kevin,
I'll stay with you here, Vega. Kevin's just got to go pick up the lady,
okay.
so he can bail. We don't need him. We can talk about Rake all you want.
I will catch it on the replay for sure. But I appreciate it, Vega. Thank you so much, man.
Later, Kevin.
Take care. Right. If I could talk about Rake a bit, I always think that Rake should be on tournaments. It doesn't make sense to rig a single paid race. If you remember the daily tournament that we have, maybe more than a year ago, where there's a pot of, let's say, $10,000 and what, 392 horses, I think, get into funnel A and B.
Mm-hmm.
And now at that point, they're taking money from treasury and basically paying you to run. Understand that, that need to change. I definitely could see if you just run that as a sit and go, you need to pay to get in, but you could win a big prize if you become the champion. You could rake that 10%, 50%, 20%. I don't see a problem. I definitely can see Rake work that way. I think the game right now lacks jackpots. I personally, I think that's a huge problem.
Completely agree. Yeah, I mean, that's what they said was going to happen, right? They said there wasn't going to be Rake until sit and goes, and at first it would be only on sit and goes. And I mean, it makes complete sense, right? Like when you've got a double up, like you can't take 10% out of that pot. It just makes no sense to ever sign up for that. And that's what you were running a lot of your top end horses at, was leveling them in those double ups, right? So I'm totally with you. And jackpot, I don't know if you've seen a lot of the clamoring for like progressive jackpots, but that would be an awesome use for Rake, right? If they launched Rake and said, listen, here's what it is, this is where it's going to, we're introducing these progressive jackpots, and it's going to be, whether it's just one random race, like you hit the progressive jackpot and it tells you before, and maybe it has like an extra counter and it says this is the progressive jackpot race, and there's a counter on the Zed site, and it just keeps going up with every race that's run. And we're seeing this, like, oh, it's at 50,000, it's at 60,000. I got to start racing more and more horses, right? Because one of these races is going to pop and be the progressive jackpot one, and the winner of that race is going to get 90% of that jackpot, and then everybody else, kind of like a bad beat in poker, gets like a little piece of it too. Like that kind of stuff is so obvious, and so obviously what's missing in Zed, right?
Yeah. I think one thing that why people do horse racing in the real world is because you could be a nobody, you could buy a very cheap horse, and you have a shot at winning the Kentucky Derby. And even the richest owners with the most horses, there are a lot of them who tried for many years, they couldn't win the big thing. And you as a tiny owner, or band up 10 of your guys, we join a syndicate, we buy a horse, and just with one horse we could win that. And Zed have done that previously. Donkey, do you remember Class 1 Premier?
Mm-hmm, of course.
Yeah. Class 1
Great
Premier,
time.
if I remember, first of all the players have a blast. But more important, if you remember, the winning horses, let's see if I could remember that. I remember one of them is Breathless Juicer. In the mid, there's a horse called Oh My Word. Sprint as I don't remember the name, Midnight Meat Train or something like that. What I'm trying to say is
They were
when you
nobodies.
do
Yeah.
they were when you do that, the winner will not be Ready Z Boom or Y2K2K or yeah, because it will be so difficult for any horse to take it all because one bad roll and you are out. And I think Z needs something like that to give the little guy a shot at winning a big one. If you do that, the little guy doesn't mind running against Ready Z Boom because let's say if you do 144 horse, 2 rounds of 12, only the winner goes through. Everybody put up $10, so you have $1,440 pots. You could rake at 10%, 20%, so $1,200 to the winner who could win both races. Look, I will race that every day. Why not? Why not? But there's nothing like that. I'm not racing because I need to pay $10 to win $9 today against the best marathoner today. Why would I run? That's if the question is about what my vision of Z, or what do you think is will especially on the topic of rake, I think that's how rake should be done, because in the real world, in lottery, in a lot of countries, the rake is 50%. The reason you could do 50% is because the guy could pay $1 and win $1 million. When you do that, you could rake a lot because look, it doesn't matter for the guy whether the ticket is $1, $2, but he could have a chance to win $1 million. And you need that pot to have the rake. I think they go hand in hand. Yeah, that's how I think rake should be implemented, and that's the way I think rake makes sense. And I know that there's talk about set and go coming. We'll see. Maybe that's the original idea, but yeah, I don't think the daily single paid race rake makes sense. If they want to do it, maybe 1%, 2%, maybe it's okay. Just because financially it doesn't make sense. The XP will be so expensive for me to finish these final levels. I just couldn't run.
I think the other interesting part of rake here, getting down this rabbit hole, like I think it does at a smaller percent, like you're saying, maybe 2%. It does give value to XP, right? Because like, yeah, you can grind freeze and get all the XP you want, but it's not easy, right? You got to run like 50 races to get 1 XP NFT, probably on average, something like that. Like, who's got time for that, right? Like, this is that's legitimate. I guess if you got a bot or something like that, maybe it's a different story, right? But for those of us that don't, that's a lot of time to put in. There's a value to that, right? And if you're running with rake, there's a value to XP there. That percent of rake is going into the value equation for XP. So I think that maybe that's maybe a little part of it. And then also, trying to fight against bots, right? Like I don't know why they don't have a better system to prevent race stacking. And it seems like it's like a manual system and like people reporting people for stacking races. But if there's a rake, it's much harder to do that, right? So I guess those are two theoretical excuses for it that do make a little bit of a sense, but you could do it at a lower percent and it still works. And I'm totally with you, man. It makes much more sense on something with a big jackpot. We've got those in the US here too, 50-50 jackpots. Any sporting event that you go to, pretty much in my area anyway, they sell raffle tickets and 50% of it goes to, I think they actually usually do 50% to charity. They don't even take it, and 50% to whoever wins it. And everybody's happy when they win $5,000 or whatever,
Yeah, and you can see them. They are moving away from that. Obviously, they could change direction again, but at the moment, you could see they are moving away to that. I think they are trying to make a lot of horses find their place in the game. So, in my view, there are too many segments, in my view. I don't know how many segment makes sense, but when you have too many segments, a lot of problems starts to appear, and you will start shooting yourself in the foot. Unfilled tournaments, for example. Yeah, a year ago we never have tournaments unfilled. If the marathoner funnel, it looks like there will be exactly 400 horses, somebody will put in some more marathoners just to make sure we will be at the cut line, and we have a shot at the ports. Right now, because of the so many segments, every horse have somewhere to race. But again, that makes it that your horse in your segment will be racing against the same horse over and over again until you move to the other segments. And it seems that the way ZED is doing right now, they are trying to look at the data, look at how people play the game, and adjust. For example, you run a tournament, and then in class 2, there are so many horses at level 500. So the guys with horses not at 500 are complaining. Okay, so let's do 401 to 480. And then the guy at level 481 starts to complain. And then now you need to do segment 481 to 490. And then the guy, when the horse reached 491, he's not to come in. That doesn't mean that you now need to 491 to 495. It will be never ending. I know there need to be some segment for small players, but I don't think you need a lot. Earlier you mentioned about what my vision of the game is. I would say one thing. I think it's perfectly fine if this game, 90% of the horses, or more than 90% of the horses, have absolutely no value. I do not see that as a problem. And I think ZED Management and me would totally disagree on this. Because if I go to Kentucky today and buy 100 horses, let's say I'm a very rich horse owner, at least 70, 75 of them will be shit. They're absolutely useless. Maybe 3 of them will run well in useful races to win some money. That's just nature. I don't think you need to organize races for my 70, 75 shitty horses. So a year ago, they start to do tournaments where that was still when they still have daily tournaments. Like they start to have Buterin only tournaments, cross only tournaments. The one that struck me is when they start doing Z268 tournaments. Tournaments only for Z268 horses. That's the first time I feel they have gone too far. Because it just doesn't make sense for me intuitively. That will be like you go to Kentucky and let's gather the 12 slowest horses in Kentucky and run a $1 million race among them. Let's see who's the quickest amongst these 12. And then again, strange things start to happen. Does it mean that as a breeder, I need to breed into the slowest horses? Does it mean that I need to get bad stallions so that I could breed slower horses to get into these races? Shall I go for the win? Shall I go for the fastest horses? I just don't think that makes. I just don't think that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Just my rant. My rant on thing. I don't think you need many segments. I think they're trying to please too many horses. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, I think
from a breeder, I think there will be people that Vega, here you go again. You're trying to boost the value of horses. What I'm trying to say is, I think it's perfectly. I think a player who buy a foal from me for 1 ETH and that horse turns to be shit, he will be happy if he buy many horses and one of them have a shot of winning 10 or more ETH. but you don't need to organize races so that every one of his horses have some place to race. I think he'll be very happy to bench his other 9 horses if you buy 10 horses and one of them turns out to be really good and have a shot at winning big. Right now, that big prize doesn't exist. And if you ask me why, because they have over segments, because they're trying to split that pot among too many horses, so everybody can win $8, $20, and therefore nobody get a big prize. Yeah, I'll stop there. I've talked a lot. Yeah.
Well, I think your example of going to Kentucky and buying 100 horses and 75 of them being worthless, it makes sense. Playing devil's advocate, there's still some sort of value in the real world in those 75 horses. They can do something, whether it's giving pony rides or herding sheep or something like that, right? And I think that's Zed. They didn't have to do what they did. There's just so many other ways, right? With burning mechanisms and hey, get 10 of your terrible sheep herding horses together here, right? And burn them and you get this type of reward. Like all that kind of stuff I prefer that avenue as well. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. That's the game that I prefer too. And I think a lot of people don't see that, because I do support the decisions Zed makes, and we try to adapt to them. And I want to try my best to keep community sentiment positive when there's so many people going in the other direction. That doesn't mean that I agree with all the choices that Zed has made. You know what I mean, Vega?
Right. No, nobody agrees. I mean, everybody has a vision of their best game. But I guess a lot of negative sentiments come from players who have been around so much, and they sort of feel they have lost their game, which I will call that the old Zed. That game is no longer exists. You could see that Galactic, Grand Crew, and a lot of people, the breeding part, they couldn't do what they do anymore, and that's where the negative sentiments from them come from.
Yeah, I think it's just
because. Yeah, you
certain
see
degree of attachment.
They are having fun with what they're doing, and suddenly the game changed, and they couldn't do that anymore. And then now it's a totally different game, grinding with it, and for them, they are not here for that.
Right. I think it's natural, like as humans, right? Like we find something we like, and we start doing it, becomes habit, and you become attached to that, right? And then that drug gets taken away, and it's like, well, I want it back, and Zed's like, no, you're angry, right? And
yes. I'm sure ZED management have their reasons for doing that. They want the game to appeal to a lot more people, so it has to change. Okay, that's the vision. Yeah.
Well, Vega, I think we've covered a lot here. It was awesome having you on and getting some insight from you on what's going on over there, because I think that there probably would have been. I appreciate you reaching out. I didn't even realize that you weren't running anymore. I'm sure Kevin did, because he does majority of our top end of Class 1 racing. But I think the community would appreciate knowing what you're thinking and why you're not racing. And maybe Zed management will appreciate hearing it too, as one of the bigger stables. So when things change, maybe we can get you back on, Vega. We're looking forward to seeing your horses run in the Legends League tomorrow night. It'll probably be tonight. We'll probably air this the morning of the Legends League races here in the U.S. So good luck to you there, and we look forward to seeing you in season 2 as well.
Right, definitely, and thanks for having me. And on the Legends League, thank you guys for organizing that. I have a blast there.
No, it's so much fun. We look forward to doing next season. Oh, everybody can follow you out on Twitter at 77Vega77, correct?
Yes.
You're not super active on there, but they can get in touch with you on Twitter, or I think it's your same username on Discord if people are looking for breeds or anything like that.
Correct. I'm just not a guy who talks a lot on social media, just because of maybe I'm a nerd or whatever. I don't know, but I just don't talk a lot. Yeah. So I will not be appearing on a lot of shows on internet. This is probably the first show that I've been on anywhere on the internet.
Hopefully not the last, Vega.
We will see. I don't know. I said this is I will only do it once, but we'll see.
Well, you're always welcome back. We enjoy talking. I mean, we could talk about Zed for hours, but our wives will murder us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Vega. Talk to you soon.
Okay, take care. Bye bye.